The clock has just ticked past 45 minutes. The referee blows the whistle to signal halftime at the BayArena. Mikel Arteta walks down the tunnel with his thoughts racing. His side has just survived the first half. Not thrived. Survived. The performance has been flat, uninspired, and worryingly one-dimensional. But the scoreline is still level. There is still everything to play for. He has 30 minutes to deliver a message to his players, 30 minutes to reset the tone, sharpen the focus, and remind this squad of exactly what they are capable of. And then, almost the moment the second half begins, it all falls apart. Within the first minute of the second half, Alejandro Grimaldo stands over a set piece. Arteta has scouted this. He knows what Grimaldo can do from dead ball situations. His delivery is dangerous. His quality from set pieces is one of the most well-documented threats in Leverkusen's entire attacking arsenal. And yet, as the ball swings into the box, Arsenal switch off. The defensive shape breaks down at the critical moment. Robert Andrich arrives and finishes 1-0 to Leverkusen. And Arsenal have just made history for all the wrong reasons. That moment did not just change the scoreline on the night. It changed the entire story of this tie. It forced Arsenal into a position they had not been in all season, exposed problems that had been simmering beneath the surface. And it sparked a conversation about certain players in this squad that will not go away quietly. This is the full picture of what happened at the BayArena and what it means for the second leg at the Emirates. To understand why this result carries so much weight, it is important to understand what Arsenal had built heading into this knockout tie. The Gunners had put together a perfect league phase campaign. Perfect, not good, not impressive, perfect. They had won every single match in the league phase of this season's Champions League competition. That kind of record places you among the elite clubs in European football at this moment in time. So stepping into the round of 16 against Bayer Leverkusen, there was a justified belief that this Arsenal side could handle whatever came their way. But football has a way of humbling even the most confident of squads. And what unfolded at the BayArena delivered a very sharp reminder that form in the league phase does not automatically translate into knockout football excellence. The reality is stark. Had Kai Havertz not stepped up and converted a penalty in the 89th minute, Arsenal would have returned to North London a goal behind heading into the second leg. That is a position that would have placed enormous pressure on the home side and handed Leverkusen a psychological edge coming into the Emirates. The situation is one that Arsenal narrowly avoided, and the margin of that escape should not be understated. Before we go any further into what went wrong and what Arteta must now address, if you want this level of detailed analysis on every major Arsenal story as it unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel breaks down exactly what is happening inside the club, what the numbers actually mean, and what the decisions on and off the pitch tell us about where Arsenal are heading. Subscribe and you will never miss the full picture. Now back to the BayArena. The most damaging fact of the entire evening is this. For only the second time in Arsenal's history in major European competition, the club conceded a goal in the first minute of the second half. The first time it happened, you would need to rewind all the way to 2010. Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored that goal for Barcelona. That is how rare and how significant Wednesday night's concession truly was. It was not just the timing, it was the manner. Arteta had specifically prepared his side for the threat of Grimaldo's delivery from set pieces. That is not speculation. The quality of Grimaldo's dead ball delivery is one of the most well-known and well-documented threats that Leverkusen possess. And yet, in the precise moment that his team needed to be at their most alert, most focused, and most organised, they switched off completely. Grimaldo delivered the ball, Andrich arrived unmarked, and the net rippled. That single moment of defensive disorganisation, coming just seconds after Arteta's halftime team talk, raises serious questions. Not just about individual concentration, but about the collective defensive mentality of this squad in high-pressure European away fixtures. When the coaching staff have highlighted the threat, when the preparation has been done, and when the moment to execute that preparation arrives, the team failed to deliver. That is a problem that goes beyond tactics. Leverkusen were, it must be said, the better side across large portions of the match. They came out of the blocks with intensity that Arsenal simply could not match. Their energy levels did not drop. Their pressing was relentless. While Arsenal were described as one-dimensional and out of ideas in attack, Leverkusen looked like a team playing with genuine belief and clarity of purpose. The visitors looked slow, they looked short of ideas, and they looked at times like a side that was not fully prepared for the pace and aggression that Leverkusen were playing with. The performance of Bukayo Saka against Leverkusen was, by every available measure, dreadful. That word is not being used lightly. Saka was trying to take on multiple Leverkusen defenders in situations where the percentages were firmly against him. He was not finding space. He was not making the right decisions in possession. He was not contributing in the way that a player of his caliber should in a Champions League knockout tie. The result of that performance was inevitable. In the 60th minute, Arteta made the call. Saka was substituted off the pitch. His evening was done. And this is where the story becomes genuinely interesting from an analytical perspective. The player who came on in his place was Noni Madueke, the summer signing who stepped off the bench with a clear and simple instruction from his manager. Arteta told him, "Go and try and change the game." Those were the words. Simple, direct, and loaded with expectation. What Madueke did in the 30 minutes that followed is one of the most significant individual cameo performances of Arsenal's entire European campaign this season. The numbers that came out of that brief appearance are striking. Every single dribble he attempted, he completed. Every one. He completed 4 progressive carries, meaning he was driving the ball forward into dangerous areas, something this Arsenal side have been desperately lacking all evening. He won every single duel he contested, 100% success rate. And most critically of all, he won the penalty that led to Havertz's equaliser in the 89th minute. The evidence suggests that without Madueke's introduction, Arsenal would have left Germany with a defeat on the night. That is not an exaggeration. That is what the facts support. The starting attack, particularly Saka and Eberechi Eze, had not delivered. The team was heading toward a damaging loss. Madueke changed that trajectory almost single-handedly in less than half a game. Speaking after the match, Madueke confirmed what Arteta had told him just before he stepped onto the pitch. The instruction was clear and direct. Go and change the game. And that is precisely what he did. The conversation that now must happen within the walls of Arsenal's training ground, and the conversation that the evidence firmly supports, is this. Madueke needs to be rewarded with a starting place. The situation is one where Arteta simply cannot ignore what he saw from the bench on Wednesday night. A player who is currently a substitute delivering that level of impact raises an unavoidable question. What would that player do if he was preparing all week to start? The analysis points in one direction. Saka, who is one of this club's most important players in normal circumstances, is currently not in the form that justifies automatic selection in knockout European football. He needs either a change in position or a period on the bench to reset. There is a strong case for moving Saka into a more central attacking midfield role where he has shown quality in the past, while Madueke operates on the right flank from the start. Whether Arteta has the conviction to make that call for the second leg at the Emirates remains to be seen, but the football facts from the BayArena make that conversation unavoidable. The issues in attack were not limited to Saka. Eberechi Eze, operating in the attacking midfield role, had another disappointing evening. This is becoming a pattern that is difficult to ignore. When Eze does not perform, Arsenal's entire attacking structure suffers because the creative burden falls too heavily on the wide players to generate something from nothing. On this occasion, that burden fell on Saka, who was himself out of form and out of ideas. The result was an attack that looked predictable and easy for Leverkusen to read. Leverkusen's defensive structure was not seriously threatened for long periods of the match. That is not acceptable for a club with Arsenal's ambitions in this competition. The situation with Eze is a significant one heading into the second leg. If Madueke is to start on the right, and the evidence from Wednesday night strongly supports that decision, then Arteta also needs to consider what he does in the number 10 or attacking midfield position. The option exists to move Saka into that central area where he has demonstrated genuine quality in recent weeks. That would give Arsenal more creativity and intelligence in the spaces between the Leverkusen midfield and defence. But decisions need to be made quickly. The second leg is less than a week away. These are not situations that can be allowed to drift. Of all the individual stories to emerge from the BayArena, the one surrounding Martin Zubimendi may be the most complex. The £51 million midfielder came in for fierce and widespread criticism from Arsenal supporters watching the match. The complaint was consistent across social media. Zubimendi was not playing the ball forward. He was not progressive. He was constantly taking the safe option, passing sideways or backwards rather than driving the team forward. The reality of the numbers makes it very difficult to argue against that criticism. Of the 57 passes that Zubimendi completed during the match, only 6 of them went into the final third. 6 out of 57 completed passes. That is an extraordinary statistic for a central midfielder operating in the kind of game that requires someone to break lines and carry the play forward into danger. The fan reaction was passionate and frustrated. Social media was full of supporters asking the same question again and again. What exactly does Zubimendi bring to this team when he plays in this way? There was genuine confusion about his role and his contribution, and the numbers from the match gave those questions a very solid foundation. However, the full picture of Zubimendi's situation is important to consider, and the evidence actually offers a degree of context that makes the picture more nuanced. The reality for the club is that no outfield player in the Arsenal squad has played more minutes than Zubimendi this season. He has played an extraordinary number of minutes. In fact, remarkably, only David Raya, the goalkeeper, has played more overall minutes than this midfielder, and the gap between Raya and Zubimendi is just 77 minutes. That context matters enormously. A player who is operating at that level of physical and mental load is going to start showing signs of fatigue. The conservative, backward-facing passing style that Arsenal supporters were watching against Leverkusen may not be a tactical flaw or a personality trait. It may be the direct result of a player who is simply exhausted and operating far beyond what should be asked of him at this stage of a long season. The question, therefore, is not just about whether Zubimendi is good enough. The question is whether Arteta is managing him correctly. A player cannot be asked to carry that many minutes across a Premier League campaign and a deep European run without eventually showing the effects. And what Arsenal supporters saw against Leverkusen may be exactly those effects presenting themselves at the worst possible time. The solution appears straightforward. Zubimendi needs rest. Not permanently, not a statement about his quality or his place in this squad. He simply needs to be managed more carefully as the season reaches its critical phase. The evidence from Wednesday night strongly supports that argument. Whether Arteta chooses to act on it ahead of the second leg is a decision only he can make. The Zubimendi situation does not exist in isolation. It connects directly to the performance and the burden being placed on Declan Rice. When Zubimendi is playing conservatively and completing the vast majority of his passes sideways or backward, someone else in the midfield has to compensate. As someone else has to pick up the progressive work, the ball carrying, the line breaking. And in this Arsenal midfield, that responsibility is falling overwhelmingly on Rice. The situation is one where Rice is effectively doing the job of 2 midfielders. He is covering defensively, winning possession, and then also attempting to drive the team forward in attack. That is an enormous physical and tactical demand to place on one player, no matter how talented or how fit that player may be. Over a sustained period, that kind of double burden carries risk. Not just for Rice's performance levels, but for his physical condition as the season approaches its most important stages. The evidence from Wednesday night suggests that this midfield dynamic is not functioning as it should. The pairing of Rice and Zubimendi has been Arteta's preferred option, and it has delivered excellent results at times. But against a high-intensity Leverkusen side in a Champions League knockout tie, the limitations of that partnership were exposed clearly and publicly. One of the most concerning emerging patterns from this match relates to the defensive shape in and around set-piece situations. The goal Arsenal conceded came directly from a set-piece delivery by Grimaldo. And from the analysis that has followed the game, it appears that Leverkusen had a very clear blueprint for targeting Arsenal's defensive structure, specifically in the areas around Gabriel Magalhaes. The details of exactly how that blueprint was executed and what it reveals about Arsenal's defensive organisation represent a serious concern as the second leg approaches. Set pieces are, in the modern game, one of the most significant sources of goals in knockout European competition. Teams spend enormous amounts of preparation time designing and rehearsing set-piece routines precisely because they can be so decisive. For Arsenal, having conceded from a set-piece that Arteta had specifically identified as a threat, the message heading into the Emirates leg is unmistakable. The defensive shape at dead ball situations must be tightened, reorganised and drilled intensively before Tuesday night arrives. It is important, in the middle of all this scrutiny and analysis, not to lose sight of one genuinely positive and significant fact. Arsenal are still in this tie. They are going into the second leg at the Emirates with the score level at 1 goal apiece. And crucially, by finishing inside the top two of the league phase, Arsenal guaranteed themselves home advantage in the second leg of every knockout round this season. That decision, that early season excellence, is already paying dividends. The idea of this Arsenal side, in their current form, travelling away from home for a decisive second leg against a team that has just outperformed them at the BayArena, would be a deeply uncomfortable prospect. Instead, Leverkusen must come to the Emirates. They must travel. They must deal with the noise and the intensity of a full Arsenal home crowd in a knockout European fixture. The home advantage that was earned through the perfection of the league phase campaign is not a small thing. It is a genuinely significant factor heading into next week, and the numbers support the optimism on that front. Based on current form and home advantage, Arsenal hold a 74.3% probability of progressing through this tie. That is a strong position to be in, despite a deeply underwhelming performance in Germany. The evidence from Wednesday night points clearly to several things that Arteta must address before the Emirates fixture. The first is the selection on the right flank. The data from Madueke's 30-minute cameo cannot be ignored. He was the standout performer on the night. He completed every dribble. He won every duel. He won the penalty that saved the tie. He must be strongly considered for the starting lineup. The second is the use of Saka, whether that means a change of position to the attacking midfield role or a spell on the bench. The current deployment of Saka on the right wing in his current form is not producing the output that Arsenal need from that position. The third is the management of Zubimendi. 77 fewer minutes than the goalkeeper across an entire season is an extraordinary load for an outfield midfielder. Rest is not a weakness, it is management, and right now Zubimendi needs managing. The fourth is the set-piece defensive structure. Having conceded from a set-piece that the coaching staff had specifically identified as a threat, the rehearsal and organisation of defensive shape at dead ball situations must be given the highest possible priority in training this week. The situation that Arsenal find themselves in is uncomfortable but not catastrophic. The tie is alive, the second leg is at home, the squad has quality available, and the evidence from the Madueke cameo suggests that when the right players are on the pitch with the right instructions, Arsenal can hurt anyone. But the questions raised at the BayArena are real and serious. The defensive vulnerability at set pieces, the over-reliance on Rice in midfield, the conservative nature of Zubimendi when fatigued, the lack of creativity from Eze, the current poor form of Saka. These are not minor concerns that can be brushed aside. They are structural and personnel issues that require clear and decisive thinking from Arteta before the second leg kicks off. The Emirates will be loud, the crowd will be behind the team. The home advantage is real and earned. But a crowd alone does not fix a fragile defensive structure or an attack that struggled to find solutions against a well-organised Leverkusen side for most of the 90 minutes. The evidence from the first leg is clear. Arteta has approximately 1 week to make the decisions that could define Arsenal's European season. The second leg at the Emirates is not just a football match. It is a test of this squad's mentality, resilience, and tactical clarity under real pressure. The next chapter of this story will be written under the lights in North London, and the whole of European football will be watching